I remember one time sitting in the back seat of my dad's pickup truck and we were driving through town. I don't remember exactly how old I was. I was pretty young though. And my dad, he was driving and mumbling and grumbling about how gas prices had gone up by 15 or 20 cents overnight. And he was pretty hot-headed about it. And I remember just sitting there silently, because you don't interrupt your dad when he's having a mumbly-grumbly session in the front seat of the car, driving you. I remember thinking, it's okay, Dad. I've got quarters in my piggy bank that I can give to you. 15 cents, 20 cents, that's not a lot. I remember this other time, too, being on the playground at recess, grade school, maybe 7 or 8 years old, and this kid was running around the playground talking about how his parents had just bought a brand new house and it cost over $150,000 or something like that. And I remember thinking in my head, holy crap, this kid is rich. His parents are so rich, because at that time I didn't understand that there was other types of money, not just cash. And so I pictured this kid at home with his parents, and they just must have had over $150,000 in cash in their house to be able to buy a new house. I share these stories because, oh, by the way, we're just dropping right in. Obviously, there's no fancy intro to this. We're just going to keep things real, keep it simple, and just chat. Welcome to the first episode of Anna Uncut, by the way, where we are just opening the big can of worms and talking about money today. The reason I share these stories is because the reality is our financial education starts before we even realize it when we're children, because we're just soaking in so much. We're just like sponges, and we hear things, and our parents will say things, and that's kind of the foundation that is laid for how we understand money and how the world works. At least that's what I think. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's a little bit how it works. That's how it worked for me anyway. And when you're a kid, at least for me, I remember thinking for a little while that all kids are sort of just raised the same way that you are. And then at some point, whether it's like through sleepovers or experiences at school, on the playground, at lunch, during sports time, gym time, whatever, you start realizing through talking with other kids that that is not the case, and we're all playing by different rules here. Some kids have curfews, some kids don't. Some kids get to eat like fruit roll-ups for lunchtime in their brown bag lunch, and then there's you who has the apple or the banana with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Anyway, my financial education, it turns out, was very different from a lot of the kids in my class. And it took me a really, really, really long time to realize that. But my financial education came mostly from my dad and my grandpa. And if you watched my video on my main channel, Anna Uncharted, where I open this can of worms and talk about money and start discussing that topic, you'll already know that my grandpa was pretty serious about it. You know, compound interest, teaching that in a McDonald's when you're a little kid, maybe that's not so normal. My first savings account I got my first savings account when I was about 6 years old, something like that. My dad had taken me to the local bank in our town, and this bank had like a kids savings account program where if you open up the savings account for the kid, you get kind of this little passport booklet, and anytime that you deposit money, it didn't matter how much, it could be 50 cents, it could be $1, etc., you would get a stamp in this passbook, and as you collect more stamps, then you can exchange those stamps for prizes, and those prizes were t-shirts, water bottles, piggy banks with the bank's logo on them, pencils, stickers, baseball cards, basketball cards, little flying kites or boomerangs. You get the picture. Anyway, so my dad did this with me, and I was just incredibly encouraged. Does that make sense? I was incredibly encouraged to save my money. And so every once in a while I would get an allowance, and my dad said, you know, you could spend this money on bubble gum or candy at the gas station, or you can put it in your savings account and get that stamp and work towards, a bigger prize or something. And whatever weird, odd disposition I had as a child, and through the encouragement and lessons learned from my grandpa and my dad, and me wanting to be a good daughter, a good granddaughter, and just a good child, I listened to them and I did what I was encouraged to do. And it kind of became an obsession very quickly. So it graduated from a couple of dollars allowance for, doing my parents' laundry and my laundry by the time I was in 3rd grade to, helping out with dinner and setting the table and doing the dishes and cleaning my room and cleaning other parts of the house, etc., to I want to learn how to make more money. And I did a lot of lemonade stands as a kid, and I'll never forget this one guy who walked across the street and asked for a cup of lemonade. I was charging, 25 cents, 50 cents for a little Dixie cup. And this man gave me a $20 bill and said, "Keep the change, kid." What? You give a kid $20 and that money, I tell you, it went straight to the bank. I just kept doing lemonade stands from then on out. And I would also kind of set up my own I had a dog walking business. I think I was in 3rd grade, and I tried to recruit some of my friends to do it with me, and they didn't last very long. But it was called Puppy Pals, and I made little flyers and stapled them onto the telephone poles around my block, and I would walk my neighbors' dogs for money. Apparently there's an app called Wag that you can now do that. It's kind of similar to DoorDash and Uber, blah, 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 apps these days, but instead of delivering food, you're just walking people's dogs for 30 minutes or an hour or something, and then you get money. Anyways, back when I was a kid, that did not exist, and I just became really good friends with my neighbors, and they supported my little business, and so I made money that way. And then by the time I was 12 or 13 years old, I started babysitting for my neighbors and different people, and was making $5 an hour and then $10 an hour for babysitting. So those were ways that I made money as a kid. And because I had a savings account and because I was encouraged to save, I didn't spend a dime. And I mentioned this in my previous video, but we'll just do a quick gloss over here. By the time that I was 15 years old, when my parents got a divorce, I decided that public school, high school, it was not for me, dude. I was not digging it, and my parents lived in 2 different cities at that point, and there was just no way for me to pick a school because I would spend half my week with my dad and half my week with my mom and switch every other Thursdays or something like that, right? And so it just made more sense, because I wasn't enjoying high school anyways, to do online school. That became an option. So I did full-time online school. It was very unstructured. I just had to turn in my assignments and get the quizzes and tests done, and that was about it. So I could work on my own time. I didn't have to be anywhere or online for any specific class. It was very, very unstructured. And so that gave me freedom to start working just immediately. And because I was this little obsessed kid just thinking that this making money thing was a fun game, I took it really far. And so by the time I was 16, I just wanted to work. I didn't really care about school anymore. I still did it, and I just basically did it to get it over with. But I was more obsessed with making money. And I worked at the Gap in the mall. Shout out to the Gap. I worked at Baby Gap as well, Gap Kids, all the Gaps. I worked them all. I also worked at a natural grocery in my neighborhood, and I would work in the kitchen cafe area making smoothies and taking people's orders and working the cash register. I also worked for our family's American Family Insurance agent, and I would stuff envelopes and answer emails and call people and wish them happy birthday, the clients and things like that. And I also worked at a pizza place, and because I didn't have a car yet, I worked in the back of house, and I would just make dough, hand-toss pizzas, and eventually worked my way up to assistant manager, where I was doing the food truck orders and opening and closing the store and running things to the bank. So I worked a lot. I would say that I was working over 40 hours a week from the age of 16, 17, 18. Again, if you haven't watched that video, I'm pretty sure that it's illegal to work a 40-hour work week as a minor, but the loopholes there were some of those jobs paid me all in cash, and because I worked different jobs, it never got up to 40 hours technically. So that's kind of how I made it work. So that's my history as a child into my teen years with money and making money. If you see me looking over here, I'm just referring to my show notes that I have here to try and keep my chaotic brain as on track as possible. Because sometimes your girl can rant, but we know that already. Around 15, 16, 17, 18, I was working myself like a dog. I was just not one of those kids that went to parties or sleepovers. I worked. I think I took life very, very seriously. I think I took everything incredibly seriously. And it's not that I didn't know how to have fun. It's just that, I don't know. You can draw your own conclusions about that. But I was also a book nerd, still am today. And again, I'm just kind of glossing over, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich, those 3 books deeply impacted me around those formative years. Another book that I read that I didn't mention before, it's called Outsmarting the Crowd, and it's all about value investing. If I remember correctly, the author, his name is, it's something interesting, like Bogumil Baranowski or something. I'll put it in the notes. It'll be here somewhere. That book was a book on investing that I read from the public library that was so helpful to me. I can't explain it. I have it somewhere in here. I have no idea where it is at the moment, but I remember reading that, and it was a very interesting book relating to value investing, but kind of from the perspective of how important it is to invest your money based off of your own values and philosophies and what's important to you in life. It was very different. I highly recommend checking it out if you're at all interested. There is a quote that I read. Again, everything that I know comes from books, guys. I don't know what to tell you. It comes from books and my dad and my grandpa and just life experience. But someone somewhere had said, whether it be in a book or to me personally, that if you want what everyone else has, then do what everyone else is doing. And if you don't, forge your own path and make your own way, something like that. And I remember looking around, kind of growing up and thinking to myself, like, I don't really want what these other people have. It just doesn't really interest me. And that's for a whole lot of other reasons that we're not going to dive into today. But as I was growing up, I really struggled with going to college. Again, we're not going to dive into my college story today, but because I had already been working so much and I had learned and figured out that, dang, it's so much work to make money that in college, even though I had some scholarships, I still had to use some of my money to, pay for cost of living, to eat and to live. And I was not working the way that I was when I was in college because I had to be in class. And I just thought, this is so bogus. Like, I'm going to run myself into debt if I stay here. So obviously that story ends with being a dropout. But again, we'll get back to that some other day. There's a quote by Anthony Bourdain that I want to share with you. It's one that I read, and it deeply impacted me to the point where I dropped out of college and I moved to Australia for a year. But the quote goes like this: if you're 22, physically fit, hungry to learn and be better, I urge you to travel as far and as widely as possible. Sleep on floors if you have to. Find out how other people live and eat and cook. Learn from them wherever you go. I moved to Australia on a working holiday visa, and I traveled for a bit. I did the volunteer woofing, working what does WWOOFing stand for? Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms, something like that. And I traveled through Australia just working and volunteering my time, and then eventually got a gig that was a paying job at a plant nursery outside of Melbourne, and I planted Protea flora flowers and leucodendrons and all these other exotic flowers I had never seen before, and they were paying me 24 Australian dollars an hour to do that. And it was just such a fun job, and I got to work with very cool people, and I ended up leaving Australia after that year with more money than I went there with, because again, I just was a saver, I guess. I don't know. We're going to fast forward a little bit. I'm looking at the time. Your girl can talk. I hope you don't mind. After I came back from Australia, I went back to my hometown and went to work again. I didn't go back to school. I just kept working jobs. And I think that those years of just working, it was coffee shop jobs, it was pizza delivery jobs, it was some, desk jobs and things. I had a lot of jobs that I left and kind of had waiting for me when I came back, because I was just a really hard worker, and I would always be the person that would cover for people. I would always be the person that would work the time and a half. I would miss Christmas and New Year's and all of those types of holidays with family and friends just to work. I was very, very obsessed with working. I'm not saying necessarily that's a good thing, but I figured out that I really enjoyed cooking, and I really enjoyed being on my feet and running around and feeling like I was making something with my hands. I hated desk jobs. I was like, this is not for me. Never stuff me in a cubicle. I will go crazy. Anyways, let me digress. I took some jobs out west in Portland and started working in restaurants and got my apartment out there. And I just slept on my floor most of the time. Like, I would build my own furniture. I would buy things off Facebook Marketplace or get things at Goodwill. And I just lived on the cheap, just living well below my means. By the time that the van opportunity came around, I was just looking for a way to get out of the rent cycle. And I kept sort of like hitting ceilings in my jobs. So the van was a financial move for sure to get out of the rent cycle. And I just wanted to save more again. So I bought my van used off of Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, and it already had the ceiling in it, it already had the flooring in it, and that was it. And I thought that I was saving myself time and money because it was insulated and had the floor and the ceiling, but if I could go back, I would have just bought a used empty van and not one that was half built out, because it was just such a nightmare to go back and drill the holes and do the wiring when the floor, ceiling, insulation, and everything was already in. I don't recommend doing it that way. But I was able to save a lot of money by doing the build myself. And so all up in total, between buying the van and doing the build and paying for the materials, and there were some minor repairs that needed to happen on this van, I think I spent just under $33,000 total for this van to be what it is today and as you see it now. And I had that money, and I was just, again, very cautious about how I was spending and working too at the same time while I was doing the van build up until the coronavirus came around. And then when those stipends were rolling in, I was at the point in my build where I didn't need my apartment anymore, so I stopped paying rent in April of 2020 and moved into my van and finished my build at my friend's house. Now, where I'm at in regards to YouTube and how I make money now, my plan always was basically just to have my van and go back to work, but I had this idea that maybe I could venture out on my own. While I was working in Portland, I was saving up for the possibility of starting my own business. I was kind of obsessed with wanting to start my own food truck or do like pop-up dinners. Like I was really on the chef train I really thought I was going to be a chef. And so over those years, I was sleeping on my floor and just not doing anything fun. I was, again, taking life very seriously and working myself like a dog. But I was saving all of this money to start my own pop-up and potential food truck, or be able to have my own little market stand at the farmer's market. I was just really obsessed with wanting to work for myself because I don't really like being told what to do. And if you know anything about the restaurant industry, if you don't own the restaurant, you're constantly being told what to do. Anyways, so after the pandemic hit and I saw how it affected everything, I was like, I think it's too risky to open up a restaurant. And I took the money that I had saved that was originally going to go towards that, and basically I decided to pour it all into this wild, crazy idea of becoming a YouTuber. Oh, dear God. And I basically had enough money to do this for 2 years. Like if I was making $0, like absolutely $0. I know some of you are looking for exact numbers here, and so I'm going to throw it out, and again, do with it what you will. God, why is this so scary? Just be transparent. People will do with the information what they will, Anna. This is what I'm saying in my brain. It's so hard to talk about these things because I just know that money gets people very emotional, and I know that this is such a rigged game. Life is such a rigged game. It's so unfair, and it's really hard for me to talk about because I know how lucky I am in some sense to have had the opportunities that I have and to have had the parents. But I also do want to give myself a little bit of credit here for really soaking in those lessons and running with them. Okay, Anna, stop procrastinating. I saved $50,000. And so I have somewhere in one of my journals that if this YouTube thing doesn't work out by spring of 2023, because I live so minimally, if it doesn't work out, cut your losses, sell the van, go back to the drawing board, and start all over again. It's definitely a risk. Everything that I'm saying, everything that I'm doing in regards to van life and YouTube, it was a risk. It is a risk. I'm not saying that I'm out of the weeds yet, but I think there's a huge misconception out there, or just not enough people talk about it to really understand or realize that you don't need millions of subscribers. You don't even need hundreds of thousands of subscribers on YouTube to make a living at this, especially if you're someone who lives in a van and doesn't pay rent. I also don't have any debt. I don't have any student debt. I don't have a car loan. I don't have those things, and so I just live as I live, if that makes sense. I hope that made sense. I'm at this point now, I'm calling it the turning point, where it's looking potentially viable, where this might be something I can keep doing. If for some reason it doesn't work out, then I'm going to disappear, and this will have been great fun, guys, but I'm going to be like, all right, y'all, it didn't work out. Watch me fail and flop on my face. Bye. But that's where I'm at right now. And other jobs, people are always like, how do you make money on the road? And it's so hard because I don't know who you are. We haven't met formally, and I don't know what skill set you have. I don't know what background you're in. I don't know what it is that you like. Something that my uncle taught me, and I'm just going to pass this along because it's a great little nugget of wisdom. I spent so much time, way too much time as a kid, worried, and by kid I mean a teenager, worried about what my job title was supposed to be or what it was going to be. I'll tell you right now that the only time that my dad and I ever had like a huge riff and tiff was when I told him that I was dropping out of college. I think that he got really, really nervous for me there, and understandably so. It's like, kids, stay in school. And I was like, Dad, trust me, I got this. I didn't know if I had it, but I was like, I'm going to prove to him that I have this. And those were the fumes that I was running off of for a long time. But instead of being so obsessed with the job title, whatever it is, my uncle said it's really important to look at the attributes of different jobs and figure out what it is that you enjoy doing, like what it is that you like doing in those certain jobs. So for example, I really like jobs that kind of require my brain to solve problems, both mentally and literally. I really enjoy working with my hands. It's the one thing about YouTube that I currently don't have figured out yet. Sometimes I get the itch to sell this van and do another van build on my channel because I just miss working with my hands, and that's something that working with food definitely solved for me. Anyway, so it's just important to ask yourself, like, what type of work you enjoy doing and why you enjoy doing it, and then looking at job descriptions that could fit. Do you like working outdoors? Do you like working with other people? Do you like working alone? I'm starting to sound like a guidance school counselor. Anna, shut up. But I think that you understand what I'm saying. It's important to get creative on the road. If I didn't do YouTube, let me put it this way. If I didn't do YouTube, the way that I would want to make money now is I would work seasonally at national parks or state parks or campgrounds. I really enjoy these areas that I'm in, and I would work my butt off, and I don't know, like I would just figure it out. And also with internet connection, I've done jobs with sort of like freelance writing, freelance copyright work, freelance odds and ends jobs on Fiverr and Upwork. But I know a lot of people who make van life work on the road are software engineers. I think you could probably be like a debt collector or something. There are so many jobs now that we know of that you can do. You can honestly, you know what? If YouTube didn't work out for me, I might just become an editor for somebody else, a different YouTube channel who's hiring an editor. I love editing videos. I personally really love editing my own, but I could edit someone else's for money. I could do that. I just don't have the time to edit my own videos and someone else's right now. There's just not enough hours in the week. Anywho, I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down. I feel like when I consume videos where other people are talking, it's very normal for the person on the other end of the screen to hear what this other person is saying, and then you compare the things that they're saying to your own life, and then you form ideas, opinions, thoughts, emotions about it. So whatever's working on in your brain, hopefully I'm giving you lots of food for thought, but that's my story. Do with that what you will, folks. This is going to be a little bit of a weird ending, I suppose, but I just want to share. It is another book, but it's not directly related to money, but I want to kind of share a bit of my philosophy because I feel like I've always wanted money to be a tool in my brain that allows me to live the life that I'm going for. And I never want money to feel like it's my master and then I'm a slave to it, or I'm prison guarded by it or something. I hope that makes sense. This book is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. It is a fiction book, but when I tell you this fiction book is one of the best fiction books, it's just one of the best books I've ever read, hands down. And if you want to fully understand how my outlook on life sort of is, you could just read this book and you would understand a lot. But these are a couple of quotes from City of Girls. And if you listen to what I'm saying and you also relate that to how I view spending, saving, investing money, it'll be a perfect, succinct thing. This first one it goes like this. The world ain't straight. You grow up thinking things are a certain way. You think there are rules. You think there's a way things have to be, and you try to live straight. But the world doesn't care about your rules or what you believe. The world ain't straight. Never will be. Our rules, they don't mean a thing. The world just happens to you sometimes, is what I think. And people just gotta keep moving through it best they can. Next quote. You must learn in life to take things more lightly, my dear. The world is always changing. Learn how to allow for it. Yes. Okay, the next one is, never has it felt more important for me to tell stories of joy and abandon, passion and recklessness. Life is short and difficult, people. We must take our pleasures where we can find them. Let us not become so cautious that we forget to live. And finally, this is my favorite one. I saved the juiciest one for last. Resist change at your own peril. When something ends, let it. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope I did a decent enough job where it feels like you have a better understanding of the background and my van situation and money and how I view things and where I got from A to B to C to D to now. I am currently in the process of figuring out how to get these up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and other streaming services, so that will happen in due time. I'm still going to do these video podcast versions though as well, because I understand that some people only watch YouTube or only prefer to have YouTube, because who wants to add more apps and more subscription services into their life? Not me. I totally get it. So this will remain. Again, I hope you got something out of this. I hope this was helpful. If you have any other suggestions for potential future podcast episodes, please do feel free to share. I'm open-minded, but at the same time, no promises. But at the same time, you just never know. I hope this was a good first episode. I feel pretty okay about it. It's going to be terrifying to upload and post, but I hope that this reaches people who are kindred spirits and who are picking up what I'm putting down. And Anna, you're rambling and rambling. I told y'all, it's rambles from the road. I am going to leave you now, and I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into this first episode. It's only going to get better in time. Hopefully we only go up from here, folks. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I will catch you in the next one. Is it working? Hello? Hello? Turn your microphone on, Anna. That might be helpful. Eh? And I forgot what I was saying. I swear, I think I might be too self-aware for this. I'm drawing a mind blank. Crap. Why did I choose to start this? Why did I don't... Oh. I don't know if I can post this. Oh my gosh, I'm having a little... Oh man. Oh... Is it hot in here? I think it's hot in here. Oh boy. All right.